Hey everyone, I'm Miss Hu, your physics teacher. In this video, we're going to go through the concept of calculating the cost of using electricity. This is a topic in both the SPM and IGCSE physics syllabus. Do keep in mind though that the IGCSE physics examination questions are slightly less complicated than the SPM one, but I'm going to cover the general method to calculate the cost anyway so that you'll be able to solve all questions, whether they're not complicated or otherwise. Do keep in mind though that whatever I'm covering is just enough for you to be able to answer your examination questions. If you'd like to know more, please feel free to do your own additional research or watch my other educational videos. Without further ado, let's get started. So, first of all, you need to be aware of what it means when we say electrical units. So, let me unveil my magic here. So, electrical units is simply this. One electrical unit is expressed as 1 kWh. What is kWh? kWh is quite simply kilowatt hour. So 1 electrical unit is actually 1 kilowatt hour. So if you're like, okay, what does this mean? Okay, it's really quite simple. Now we have over here, okay, let's say on the left hand side first, let's start with this light bulb. Let's say this light bulb has a power rating of 20 watts and we switch it on for 8 hours. So when we say that the light bulb is 20 watts, that means this light bulb has already been manufactured and designed in such a way that it basically produces 20 joules every second that it's used. That's why 20 watts. So if you want to calculate the number of electrical units used, that means we want to calculate what is the usage of this light bulb when we switch this light bulb on for 8 hours. It's very simple. So you need to get the power in kilowatts and the amount of time in hours. Okay, so I don't have the magic here. I'm going to type this up. Magic here meaning I don't have the words hidden here because I want to show you this process step by step from this point forth. So just to jazz it up a bit, I'm going to put a different color here. So the number of electrical units used by the light bulb here, okay, is the power of this light bulb, which we express in kilowatts. So 20 watts, how do we get kilowatts? You need to divide it by 1,000. That means you get 0.02 kilowatts. And you switch this on for 8 hours. So this would give you 0.16 kilowatt hours, or you can rewrite this as 0.16 electrical units. I'm just going to write units here for short. And that's it. As another example, let's look at the air conditioner. Okay, so the air conditioner, let's say, now we know air conditioners, of course, have much higher power. You know, that's how it's able to keep the room cool and all. So let's say this particular air conditioner has a power rating of 1,200 watts, and we switch this on also for 8 hours. So to calculate this aircon's usage, okay, number of electrical units, let me, it's this here, yeah, okay. Now, 1,200 watts means divided by 1,000, so you get 1.2 kilowatts times 8 hours, and you would get 9.6 kilowatt hours, which is basically 9.6 electrical units. So you can see from here, obviously, the higher the power, the higher the number of electrical units. That means the higher the usage. Why do we want to know electrical units? Why do we need these electrical units? Because that's how we calculate the cost of using electricity. The cost of using electricity is calculated as a cost per unit. In this case, the unit refers to electrical units. But before we get to calculating the cost, let's first understand what electrical units are. Electrical units are actually energy. Okay, I just realized that there's a grammatical error here, so I'm just going to quickly fix that. Electrical units are actually energy. So why do we say that electrical units are energy? Because if you recall what you've learned about power and energy, I'm going to quickly write out the formula here. Now, power is energy over time, which means that energy is quite simply power times time. Now, you would typically know energy as in terms of the units of joules, and power is watt and time is second. So basically, we know 1 joule is actually 1 watt second, or 1 watt times 1 second. But if you look at electrical units here, kilowatt hour, kilowatt is the unit for power and hour is the unit for time. So this tells us that kilowatt hour is actually another unit for energy. So you might come across questions where they give you the value of energy in kilowatt hour. And if you look at it, that's not energy, isn't energy joules. So now you know, oh, another way to express energy is by using the unit kilowatt hour. Now, please keep in mind, joules is not equal to 1 kilowatt hour, okay? 1 joule is not 1 kilowatt hour. If you want to convert kilowatt hour to joules, you would need to convert kilowatts to watts and hours to seconds. So that means you would need to convert 1 kilowatt hour to 1,000 watts times 3,600 seconds. And then this would give you 3.6 times 10 to the power of 6 joules. That's the value of kilowatt hour in joules, for your information. Okay, so now let's get to calculating the cost. Okay, here's an example. Let's say we want to calculate the cost of using electricity, and the question here tells us that the cost per unit is 20 cents. So you see over here, unit means electrical unit. So cost per unit means cost per 1 electrical unit. That's the cost per 1 kilowatt hour. So every 1 kilowatt hour, for example, say it costs 20 cents. So to calculate the cost, here's a very simple question. I'm going to take it from here, actually, just to make it easier. So I'm doing a quick screenshot. Because why not, right? Since we've already done the calculation. So let's do a super quick calculation of the light bulb and air conditioner's cost respectively. Let's start with the light bulb first. So let's say the light bulb here, you can see we've already calculated the number of electrical units that have been used when we switch on this light bulb for 8 hours. So 0.16 units. So to calculate the cost, just going to quickly change the color just because. All right, so the cost of using, in this case, cost would be 0.16 times 20 cents. And that would give us 3.2 cents. Yes, literally 3.2 cents. If you want to write it in here, because we're in Malaysia, I'm just going to write it in terms of ringgit Malaysia. That would be 0.032. That's how much it would cost. It's going to make it look a bit better. Okay, so that's the cost of using this light bulb for 8 hours. Now, let's say we want to calculate the cost of using the air conditioner. So we've already calculated 9.6 units. Okay, so let's write that here. Cost would be 9.6 times 20 cents. And that would give us 192 cents. And this is equal to 1 ringgit 92 cents. So this is the general method of calculating the cost of using electricity for, a very simple, straightforward question. Now, of course, if you're doing your examination paper that doesn't use ringgit Malaysia, if it's using like pounds or US dollars or some other dollar, please adjust this question accordingly and put the currency that the question has given to you correctly in your answers. All right? Okay, so that's in general. But there are some questions that are not as straightforward as this though. Like some questions talk about tariff rates. So what's this tariff thing? Now, applying a little bit of real life understanding over here, this is the tariff category that is taken from the Malaysia's electrical energy supplier, Tenaga Nasional Berhad. I've taken this from the website, so this is the latest tariff rates as of the date of this video, right? So of course, different countries will have different tariff rates. This is addressing Malaysia's tariff rate. So you can see over here, it says for the first 200 kilowatt hour, I'm going to zoom in case you can't see it. Okay, a little bit too zoomed in. Let me zoom out a little bit. Okay, so it says here, okay, for the first 200 kilowatt hour, okay, the rate is 21.8 cent. Okay, the next 100 kWh, 33.4, and so on. You can see here that the lower it goes in the table, the higher the number. This means that the higher the usage of electricity in that particular bill, the higher the rate would be. What does this mean? This means that for the first 200 units that you've used in that particular area, let's say, for example, if it's your house, so the first 200 units used in your household, those first 200 are calculated at 21.8 cents per unit. Now, if you exceed 200, after the 200 mark, the next 100 you get will be calculated at this rate. And then if you go even higher, then of course, higher values. So this is actually to discourage the use of electricity at a very high rate. So the less you use, the cheaper it will be. So this is an example of a TNB bill. So TNB is Tenaga Nasional Berhad, Malaysia's electrical energy supplier. Let's zoom in and take a look. Okay, I'm just also going to move this a little bit higher so that you can see. Right? Okay, so this part here is where they've done the calculation so that you can see how they've calculated the cost of using electricity. This is the kWh usage, the usage of in terms of the units for this particular household. Okay, you don't have to bother about the middle numbers. Let's just look at the total. Jumlah means total, so the total here is 730. So this particular, let's say if it's a house, this particular household has used 730 units in the past month. So how do you calculate the cost over here? Now, from 730, the first 200 is based on this rate of 21.8 cent or 0.218 ringgit. So you can see over here, it's 200 times 0.218. That gives us 43.6. But of course, the usage is much higher than 200. So the next 100 follows this rate. So that's why it's 100 here. 100 times 0.334 gives us 33.4. Now, 200 plus 100 is only 300, which is still less than the 730. So the next 300 follows this rate. So 300 times 0.516 gives us 154.8. Now, from here, cumulatively, just to show you, cumulatively, this is 300. Then 300 plus 300 is another 600. So now you can see, okay, the first 600 we've already calculated, there's still a balance of 130. Now the next block is 300, but we have only additional 130, right? So that's why 130 is over here. This block is calculated at a rate of 0.546. So 130 times 0.546, this gives you 70.98. So then you want to get the total of the usage, you just add these all up, and that's how you get 302.78. So again, to calculate the cost of using electricity from the total, you need to break it up into these blocks. So the first 200, then the next 100, and the next 300, and then you see, okay, is there any more balance? Then whatever the balance is in the final block, that number, just multiply by that rate, and then you get this number, and that's how you get the total. Okay, so let's show you how to solve this using an actual question. So let's say a question you get is something like this. Okay, let's say this table here shows us a few appliances. Okay, we've got the light bulb at 60 watts, average duration used per day 8 hours, iron 1.1 kilowatt, 2 hours. This person does a lot of ironing every day, my goodness. And then air conditioner because it's a hot day in Malaysia, right? So yeah, 12 hours. So let's say the question here wants us to calculate the cost of using the above appliances for 30 days. So this is the average duration used every 1 day. And then we're going to calculate the cost for this particular usage for a whole month of 30 days based on this tariff rate. So how to solve this question? So the first thing we need to do is we need to calculate the total number of units that have been used for 30 days. So we're going to solve this question on the next slide. But to do this, what I'm going to do is I am going to copy and paste this table to make it easier for us to be able to solve the question. So I'm going to stick that over here. Okay, once this appears. Okay, so what we should do first, I'm going to put the solution here in, okay, let's put it in green. Okay, let's say we need to calculate the number of units used first in total. So here, okay, number of units used. So what we mean by units is, if you recall, units is kWh, kilowatt hour. So we're going to calculate the values in kWh first. So from here, okay, 60 watts. Now, I'm not going to write the working out. We're going to go straight to it. So 0.06 times 8 hours, you're going to get 0.48. So I'm going to write here 0.48. Okay, you know what? I think some of you need to see this, so I'm going to write it out in full. So 0.06 times 8, this gives us 0.48. I'm going to write that here. Okay, next line. The iron is 1.1 kilowatt. Now, if they've already given the number in kilowatts, you don't need to convert anything because it's already in kilowatts. So we're going to leave it as 1.1 times 2 hours. That gives us 2.2. Same thing with the air conditioner. It's already in kilowatts, so it's 2 kilowatts. So we're just going to take 2 times 12, and that gives us 24 kilowatt hours. So this is the number of units used every day. So what we're going to calculate next is we're going to calculate the total per day. I'll just write here. Okay, total per day. Whoops, let's push this here. For total per day, all you need to do is you add these all up together. So 0.48 plus 2.2 plus 24, this gives us 26.68. 26.68 kilowatt hours per day. Now remember, the question says that they want us to calculate the cost for 30 days. So this is a total per day. So to get the total number of units for 30 days, just multiply it with 30. So right here, total for 30 days, 26.68, why does it say 7? Times 30, that gives us 800.4. So that's 800.4 kilowatt hours, or 800.4 units. All right, so how do we calculate the cost then? So we're going to use these tariff rates, well, over here. And you can see, okay, for the first 200 is 21.8. So let's check. 800.4, is it more or less than 200? Duh, right? It's more than 200. So I'm going to write it this way. First 200 units, okay, don't write equal sign because it's not equal to, okay, so that's why I put the dot over there. So the first 200 units, okay, so the whole 200 units in the first block is 21.8 cents. I'm going to write this as RM 0.218 to make it easier for calculation. So obviously this one would be 43.6. So I'm going to write that here, 43.60. Okay. Now, the next 100 units. So 800.4, okay, next 100 units. It would be 100 times RM. What a number already. 33.4. So 0.334, which will give us 33.40. Now, it's a good idea to also keep track. Good idea to keep track. So you can use your pencil to scribble at the side. Okay, 200 plus 100. That means cumulative number up to this point is 300. So you check, okay, 800.4 is more than 300, still a balance of 500 more to calculate, right? So balance of 500, let's check. Is the next one 500? No, the next one is 300. So next 300 is at 51.6. 51.6. So the next 300 units is 300 times 516, which gives us a total of 300 times 0.516 is 154.8. So 154.8. So up to this point then, we have 300 plus 300, so that means up to this point would be 600. 800.4 is, you minus 600, there's a balance of 200.4. So let's check. Is the next block more or less than 200? So the next block is, well, 300. So that's within this block. This block, 54.6. 54.6. So don't write next 300 because next 300 will be like total 900 units. That's already more. You're calculating more than how much the person is using. So the balance number of units we have not calculated yet would be 200.4 units. So 200.4 times 54.6, so 546. So that would be 200.4 times 0.546. That gives us 109.4184. So we're just going to round it up to 42. So to calculate the total cost of usage, you just need to add that all up. By the way, in case you're wondering, I don't have the numbers beforehand because I want to solve this question together with you. So total cost of usage for 30 days. Whoops. 30 days. Just add these all up together. So we have 43.6 plus 33.4 plus 154.8 plus 109.42. That gives us a 341.22. Whoops. Okay, that's not happening yet. RM, there we go. 341.22. And this is how we solve the question. And there we go. So remember, when you want to calculate the cost of using electricity, especially if the question's asking you for like a whole month of 30 days, calculate the total cost per day if the question gives you per day. Okay? Calculate total cost per day. Calculate that total then for the number of days given. So for example, this question 30 days, that's why we multiply with 30. Then use the tariff blocks over here to calculate the cost of every block, total it up, and that's how you get the total in the end. So I hope you found this video educational and helpful in answering the questions in your workbooks, your worksheets, and your examinations. Please don't forget to click like and subscribe for more lessons, solutions, and exam strategies by your physics teacher, Miss Ho. Happy studying!